Before I even say anything, I just want to mention that this video was inspired by Nitrolord. So if you guys want to go check out his channel, the link to it will be down in the description below and in the pinned comments. And I highly do suggest to you guys to go check out his content if you're at all interested in Roblox's history. Me personally, I've always been a huge fan of Roblox's history. I've nerded over it so much. And I want to say that I'm disgustingly educated in it. And to be fair, compared to a normal person, I am. But compared to someone like Nitrolord, I know fucking nothing about Roblox's history. But I am willing to learn, and I've really been enjoying the journey, and I've really been enjoying watching his videos. They're both educational and entertaining. So anyways, go watch his channel, and yeah, without any further dilly-dallying, today I want to talk about a game named Dawn of Aurora. And I also, before that, want to talk about the group that the game is hosted on called Fear. And I just overall want to ask you guys, if anybody here has played Dawn of Aurora, what happened to the game, right? Because basically, here's the thing, right? In Nitrolord's video, he was focusing on talking about a clan called Lordtech Security, which was a really big Roblox clan with many people in it. And if you guys don't know what clans are, and to be fair, I don't blame them if you don't. I don't blame you if you don't. Because until yesterday, I literally had no idea what clans are either, and I had no idea that Fear was a clan. But if you guys don't know what clans are, they're basically these groups of people who used to exist a long time ago. Well, maybe not a long time ago, but about 4 years ago, right? And these big groups on Roblox had maybe tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of players inside of them, right? And basically, what happened inside these groups is that all the people that were in the group were role-playing as if they were an army, you know, and they were like defending their homeland and whatever. And inside of these groups, you could find a bunch of games, like a dozen games, right? And each game is like its own little military outpost, right? So like each game is like each game is like a base or a military outpost or like a training camp where soldiers could go and actually train for wars and battles. And yeah, so all these games could, or most of these games at least, in these clan groups could be raided by other clans. And if the games get raided and the parent group of those games manages to defend their game, then they will win that battle, right? And basically, as far as I understand at least, these battles go on until like either one group surrenders or until one group takes over all the other groups' bases. So yeah, that's basically how these wars and clan wars function, right? And I find the idea of these clans and clan wars really interesting because with clans you can. Your clan can pretend to be like, they can pretend to have a theme, essentially. They can pretend to be a clan that only fights with swords, or not pretend to be, but they can literally be a clan that only fights with swords, or they can be a clan that only fights with guns, or they can be a clan that fights with both, or, you know, and for themes, they could also, like, pretend to be, like, a super futuristic clan, or, like, a super dystopian clan, or, like, a super... like medieval old clan, or like a fantasy clan, you know, full of wizards and shit like that. And there was like a lot of these themes and things that your clan could be inspired by and have its little community made after. And yeah, I thought clans were pretty cool. You know, it was just a bunch of people role-playing to be in wars, and, well, technically they kind of were in wars, because, again, as I mentioned, each one of these groups had like a dozen games, which were all like their own cities and outposts that other clans could raid, and the parent clan can defend, and all that stuff, and, yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And, so, yeah, as I was saying, Nitrolord, covered a clan named Lordtech Security in his video. And the clan I'm covering is named Fear, F.E.A.R. I guess. And yeah, so Fear stands for First Encounter Assault Recon. Yeah, that's what it stands for. First Encounter Assault Recon. And the interesting thing about that is that that name was ripped straight from another game that isn't even in Roblox. I'm not exactly sure what the game is called. I think it's just called Fear, like straight up. It's just called First Encounter Assault Recon. But that name Fear that appears in the Roblox group was yoinked straight from the game named Fear. So yeah, that's really interesting to me because the lore behind Fear was that it was a group that was founded by a guy named Sonic the Hedgehog XX, right? And Lortec Security was another group that was founded by a guy who was very, very, very surprisingly similar to Sonic the Hedgehog XX, right? Because the thing about Sonic the Hedgehog XX and the leader of Lortec Security is that they were both really notorious people. They were both really notorious for stealing other people's games, right? So Sonic the Hedgehog XX and the leader of Lortec Security, or at least the original leader of Lortec Security, were both known for stealing other people's games and re-uploading them as their own to get as much money and fame and whatever as possible before they got banned eventually. They were basically like Jared Valdez. I think his name was Jared Valdez 4. Yeah, but basically both of these group leaders were exactly like Jared Valdez 4, if you guys know who that is. But yeah, they were just notorious for stealing games and uploading them on their own account, right? That was basically the whole shtick. But the main difference between these two groups is that while Lortec Security went and exchanged the owner of the group like a bunch of different times, the leader of Fear actually always stayed the same. As far as I'm aware, the leader of the Fear group has always been and will always be Sonic the Hedgehog XX. Meanwhile, there were like 50 fucking leaders of Lortec Security that exchanged hands through the years. And if you guys want to learn more about that, again, as I said before, check out Nitro Lord's video, which will be in the description below and in the pinned comment. Yeah, that's really interesting thing to me, how both of these groups were founded by very, very similar people who just stole games and re-uploaded them in their own group, right? But the difference, again, as I said, is that Lortec Security had like 50 different leaders, while Fear only had one leader. And the interesting thing is that while Lortec Security eventually got pretty decent leaders and actually became a group that participated in clan wars and everything, Fear basically just completely changed overnight, right? Well, maybe not overnight, but like, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog XX, which is the leader of Fear, had like a change of heart. I mean, to say that he had a change of heart is a fucking massive understatement. He didn't just have a change of heart. He had a change of heart, of lungs, of his brain, of his entire consciousness, of his skin, of all his internal body parts, of his hair, of his personality, of everything. He was literally a completely changed person down to last atom, right? He did a fucking entire 180 in his entire life, you know. His entire life took a solid 180, right? Because he went from being a guy who was notorious for stealing games from other kids to being a guy who genuinely made one of the most impressive games on Roblox for its time, right? And it was a pretty original game, too. I mean, there's still some traces of the old Sonic. For example, a couple of the thumbnails from his game were straight rip-offs of Cyberpunk 2077 thumbnails. And also his group name, which is Fear, is completely stolen from another game. But honestly, that's really, really minor. There's really, really minor details. And I don't think you need to, like, attack Sonic the Hedgehog XX or anything like that over these minor little things. But I'm just bringing this up because I find it funny how, you know, there's still, like, little tiny glimpses of our old Sonic the Hedgehog XX. But yeah. One last thing I guess I gotta mention is that, again, if you guys want to know a little more about Lortec Security, you should go check out Nitro Lord's video, because I pretty much won't be talking about it anymore past this. And, Fear is also a group. When it comes to Fear, actually, I also don't have a lot to say anymore. But one thing that I will say is that, yeah, after Sonic the Hedgehog XX had a change of heart, so to speak, he rebranded his entire group, and he made it into a clan group, just like Vortex. And it was a huge clan group, right? Right now it has 500,000 members, and it's still open. And, yeah, they also had their own outposts and their own games and their own little cities that can be raided and defended. And their whole shtick was that they were like a futuristic clan group, you know, with like fucking stormtroopers and like super advanced police officers, and they were all fighting with like guns and lasers and whatnot, you know, and it was all pretty crazy, I guess, for lack of a better word. But yeah, anyways, it went on to be a clan group until 2020, I'm pretty sure, which is also around when clans started to die out. And I'm pretty sad that clans died out, because I think clans and clan wars are a super cool idea for Roblox, but I guess by this point they were just kind of outdated, and you know, by 2020, clans as a concept were pretty much dead and buried, right? But before going out, Fear actually did manage to absolutely smoke Lortex Security. They managed to absolutely beat their ass, bro. In a war between Lortex, when Lortex started dying out a little bit, they were pretty stagnant for a couple of years and didn't really participate in any wars. Well, they did, but they didn't really win any wars. And again, you can check that out in Natural Lord's video if you need confirmation. But they didn't really win any wars, and then eventually they started becoming more and more active again, and before clans died out, they went into a war with Fear. Fear absolutely smoked them, as I said. Fear ended up beating them 25-1. That was the final score. Fear beat them 25 points to 1 point. They absolutely smoked them. But anyways, as I was saying, by 2019, 2020, clans started dying out as a concept, and they were pretty much already dead and buried, as I said. Now, clan wars still do happen today, but they're absolutely pitiful. But yeah, anyways, after clans and clan wars died out, Sonic the Hedgehog XX went on to develop his own game. And this is like, the game that he developed is Dawn of Aurora. And this is where we finally get to the major topic of the video that I want to talk about. So, Dawn of Aurora, right? This was a pretty long intro to the video. But Dawn of Aurora, as I said, is a game developed by Fear, the group Fear, and the lead developer being Sonic the Hedgehog XX, right? And Dawn of Aurora, when I first played it, it was a really impressive game for its time, right? Because the thing about Roblox games before 2020, when Dawn of Aurora got released, is that games used like games were not nearly as big as Dawn of Aurora, right? Well, first of all, Dawn of Aurora was huge. It had a pretty damn big map. It had a huge map, right? And it also had like a really impressive lighting system, and it also looked really visually impressive, and it was like crazy detailed, and it was a great game all around, right? And it was pretty popular from what I remember as well. And well, of course it was popular, because eventually it got nominated to win the Bloxies during the 8th Annual Bloxy Awards, which I believe were the last Annual Bloxy Awards before we switched to Innovation Awards. But during the 8th Annual Bloxy Awards, they got nominated for 2 categories, and unfortunately they didn't end up winning either of them. But the fact that they got nominated shows how great of a game Dawn of Aurora was, right? Because and it's just crazy to me, right? It's crazy to me that Sonic the Hedgehog XX, out of all people, managed to create Dawn of Aurora. Because Sonic the Hedgehog XX he's a person that is notorious for stealing other people's games, and then out of absolutely fucking nowhere, he comes up with this insane masterpiece that he releases onto Roblox, right? He just fucking unleashes this masterpiece onto Roblox that is mostly original out of absolutely nowhere. But anyways, Dawn of Aurora is actually a bit of a jailbreak-inspired game, right? It functions very similarly to Jailbreak. Basically, it's a jailbreak, but with a little bit more role-playing, I'd say. Basically, how the game functions is that when you spawn in, you can be like you can either be fear, like a police officer, or you can be an outsider who's trying to immigrate to the big city. And yeah, when you immigrate to the big city, you can either start doing really bad stuff or you can start doing really good stuff. And depending on what you do, your reputation will get increased or decreased. So if you start robbing places, and you start cashing out in places and doing all these different heists, then your reputation will start going down. And if it reaches negative 100, then you will become a member of the resistance, right? Who are like the sworn enemies of fear. And if your reputation goes below 1, then you can either just become like a prisoner or a criminal, right? And I believe if your reputation goes to 25, you can become a citizen. And I don't think there's anything above a citizen, actually. I mean, I'm not exactly sure here. Take this with a grain of salt. But I don't think there's anything above a citizen once you have even more reputation. I'm vaguely remembering like one class where you needed to have like 100 positive reputation in order to be it, but maybe I'm just tweaking. But anyways, the point is, you can unlock like different roles the more or less reputation you have, right? Yeah, it's a really cool game in my opinion. It's jailbreak that forces you to roleplay a little bit more, right? Because you can either be an officer, you can be like a valuable, great member of society, or you can just be a fucking criminal and go all out and start like killing people and stealing stuff and robbing banks and all that good stuff, I suppose, or well, bad stuff technically, but you know what I'm saying. And yeah, it's a really cool game. You also have like the outside of the city, of course, you have the outskirts and or not the outskirts, but like the wasteland. And the wasteland, in my opinion, is somehow way more interesting than the city, because one of the big problems with the city is that it's just kind of empty and soulless a little bit, which is really, really sad to see. But basically, what I'm saying is that when you go inside of the city, you will notice that most of the buildings are empty and you can't really do anything with them. And other than being empty, the buildings are just absolutely massive and have like really stretched out textures on top of them, right? And they're just not really super detailed in my opinion. I mean, they do have a lot of detail. Don't get me wrong. They have plenty of detail compared to other games of the time, but they don't have nearly as much detail as like the wastelands, for example. And the wastelands, the textures all look nice. And, there's a lot of detail everywhere. Like, every single item has an insane amount of detail and care put into it. And so, yeah, I don't know where it went wrong with the city. But yeah, anyways, the point is, Dawn of Aurora was an awesome game. And it was really popular and got nominated for bloxies. Even though it didn't win, it still got nominated. But eventually, the game just kind of died out, and I'm really interested to learn about the story of why that is. And my speculations right now is that the reason that the game died out is simply because of the lack of updates. I mean, from what I'm seeing, they didn't really expand the map. Like, there were promises made by Sonic the Hedgehog XX that he would expand the map and add more stuff to the map, and do all these kinds of different things. But over the years, the only things that really happened is that he just, added a couple of vehicles to the game, a couple of game passes, a couple of weapons, and he also added like a couple of new heists, and the areas of the map that were set to be under construction never really got finished, and so people eventually just got bored and burned out and just left, I guess. But but this is just from an outsider's perspective, right? Like I'm not an active player of the Dawn of Aurora by any means. This is just from an outsider's perspective, right? But I don't think this is the only reason why the game failed, because when I actually played the game, I noticed that there were a lot of people complaining about how the new Dawn of Aurora is bad, and how the new Dawn of Aurora is like brainless and has a lot of bad weapons and whatnot, and how the new Dawn of Aurora killed the game, right? So there's been a lot of talk about how the old Dawn of Aurora was better, And I just want to ask people if, like, you know, if that's true, because I really haven't seen a lot of changes in between the new Dawn of Aurora and the old Dawn of Aurora. Because I used to play Dawn of Aurora, I think the first time I played it was like back when it first released, right? And, you know, it was a really cool game, really visually impressive and all that. And like right now, I don't see a lot of things that have changed. Like there's like a couple of new vehicles and a couple of new guns, but that's basically it. So I'm wondering if any actual active Dawn of Aurora players watching this, I wonder if you could explain to me exactly what you mean by the old Dawn of Aurora was better. But yeah, another thing that I noticed about the new Dawn of Aurora is that there are these bots plaguing the game, and oh boy, these bots actually gave me a little bit of a flashback to TF2 bots. Because the way that these bots function in the game is that, thankfully, unlike the TF2 bots, they don't really cheat. They just kind of stay AFK and just spam the exact same message over and over and over again in the chat. But these bots have exactly the same username. Every single one of them has exactly the same username, and it's DOA_revival, which obviously stands for Dawn of Aurora Revival. And you know, this the fact that they're trying to revive the game obviously suggests that the game was popular at one point. But it's just really interesting to me that the game is like botted right now, and every server has like 10 different bots inside of it, right? Because all these bots remind me of the TF2 bots, because they spam this message where they're saying like, hey guys, if you want to join a cool and active community of Dawn of Aurora, just join our Discord server and click on this link and all that stuff. And it kind of reminds me of the Omegatronic bots from TF2. But yeah, these bots in Dawn of Aurora don't really do anything. They just spam that message over and over again about how they want to revive the game and whatnot, which suggests that they did have an active community at one point, which means that I'm not tweaking when I say that the game was popular during its original release. But yeah, these bots keep talking about like the revival of the game and how you should join their server if you want to be a part of an active community and all that. But yeah, I mean, like overall, I think it's the lack of updates that killed the game, but also I'm not exactly sure about that. So if anybody in the comments could educate me on the downfall of this game, then I would actually absolutely appreciate that. But yeah, overall, I guess the whole point of this conversation I'm having here is, you know, I just wanted to ask, why did the game fail, you know? Because to me, it's a pretty tragic failure. I mean, this game was one of the most promising games I've ever seen on Roblox, right? It just had so much potential. It had so many good features in it. It looked so good for the time. It was so visually impressive. And then it just fucking fizzled out of nowhere. It just died. It just fell off the face of the planet, never to be seen again. And I'm just really sad about that, and I want to know why that happened. And I want to know if the game will ever be revived. Like, I mean, again, I really had faith in Sonic the Hedgehog here, because as I said before, Sonic the Hedgehog XX was a person known for stealing other people's games and re-uploading them as his own. And so, you know, the fact that he had like this huge change of his life right? The fact that he had this huge change in his life and just decided to make one of the most visually impressive games on Roblox just for it to fail is just really, really, really sad to me. And you know, I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that the game will come back. It probably will not, but the game is still semi-actively getting updated, you know. Like recently, well, by recently I mean like 5 months ago, but still, recently, the Sonic the Hedgehog XX actually had an update to the game where he added a new vehicle and a new gun, and I think a new heist. And so yeah, the game is still getting updated from time to time. So yeah, I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping that the game will be back one day. You know, maybe it'll get revived a little bit. But I think at this point that's a pretty delusional goal. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you liked the video and everything. Again, one last time, go check out Nitro's video on lore tech security and the history of clans if you want to know more. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. I'm just sad what happened to Fear, and I'm just sad what happened to Dawn of Aurora. But without any further yapping, I guess that's all I have to say. So see you, everybody. Goodbye.